Dear Dhamma friends, we have come to the Dhamma sermon of this English medium retreat. May you settle down and say sadhu sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Attime bhikkave dhamma bhavita bahuli kata apara parangamanaya samvattanti iti. Dear Dhamma friends, as a way of improving our Suttame Jnana, or the knowledge that we are gaining through hearing or learning, that we are conducting this Dhamma sermon. Actually, there are three ways that Buddha mentioning to improve our knowledge, either by listening or reading, and else the reflections. Once we read something, once we heard something, based on that information, based on that data, we can contemplate internally, we can think in different ways, and that we call as Chintame Jnana. And of course, we need to do the practice, and that is the Bhavaname Jnana, contemplative knowledge, or in a way, the meditative knowledge. Meditative knowledge is, in a way, is the supreme one that is really based on the experience. The other two, actually, we can gather through books and through various listening, and nowadays there are various communication techniques are available. So the Suttame Jnana and Chintame Jnana are fairly available to us. In case that you are touching the correct source, say if you are listening to Dhamma, so you gain some amount of knowledge, you can gather some information, and that itself is important. That is what we are actually trying to do here. But on the other hand, the Bhavaname Jnana, the meditative knowledge, is actually unique. Even though Buddha has mentioned various methods, techniques to improve that, we ourselves have to travel in that path. We ourselves have to practically involve in that path. Otherwise, it may not come immediately, or it may not come naturally to us. So it has to be our own understanding. It has to be our own experience, and through which we are getting this meditative knowledge. But here through Dhamma sermon, we are trying to, in a way, enhance our knowledge which is coming through the listening, and that is also important. Because it is the Buddha's teaching that we are trying to hear, and that is also important, because otherwise we are thinking our own way, and it could be wrong, and it can even lead to confusion. But on the other hand, when we are listening to Buddha's teaching, so that leads to some sort of a clarity in our mind. So that leads to the correct understanding, correct view, and that is quite important. So in one sutta that is called Anuggahita Sutta, therefore Buddha asks us to support this practice in 5 ways. First is, of course, this Suttame Jnana, Suttame Anuggahita, Sutta Anuggahita, where you are supposed to listen to the Buddha's teaching. You are supposed to learn the Buddha's teaching so that you gain some knowledge. And the second one is the Sila Anuggahita, where you need to have some establishment in morality, because otherwise what we are trying to improve, that is what we are trying to handle, is quite difficult. Actually, in a meditation retreat, we are trying to improve our mental skills. But handling mental skills or developing mental qualities are quite difficult if we are not maintaining enough morality. So our task, the deeds, have to be quite moral, have to be based on ethics. So therefore we need to restrain our body, and again our speech has to be restrained. It should not harm the others. It should not break the, say, silence or whatever, the calmness in the environment. And likewise, we have to maintain fair amount of verbal restrainment as well. So therefore the sila, the morality, is also important, and Buddha says therefore to support through morality as well. And third is the discussion, where when we are listening, still we can get some doubts. Again, when you are contemplating, and again when you are thinking, rationally thinking, that also can lead to certain confusions, can lead to certain doubts. And again, when you are practicing, sometimes we come into certain situations whether we got the correct decision at the particular time, whether is it necessary to cultivate that particular state of mind, or we simply need to neglect that state of mind. So likewise, there could be some sort of a doubt in which we need to discuss with someone else. So therefore, Buddha asks us to support our path through discussions as well. That is called Sakacca Anuggahita. On the other hand, we need to collect our mind, we need to concentrate our mind, because typically our minds are dispersed, our minds are scattered. So it is difficult for us to understand Buddha's teaching deeply in case our minds are scattered. So we need to collect our mind, we need to concentrate our mind. So therefore we need fair amount of tranquility meditation, fair amount of concentration meditation, because typically our mundane mind is quite disturbed, agitated and restless. So we need to take it to some calmness, some collectedness, some one-pointed nature. Then only it would be possible for us to use such collected mind, calm mind, equanimous mind, concentrated mind to develop wisdom. So the last support Buddha mentioned in this particular Anuggahita Sutta is the wisdom development or wisdom support, or the Vipassana Anuggahita, where you are using your concentrated mind to develop wisdom, to cultivate wisdom. So I have selected one particular sutta which is available in Magga Sangyutta, in Sangyutta Nikaya. The name of this sutta is called Parangama Sutta. Actually, we have taken this sutta during last month, and I have covered 2 Dhamma sermons from this sutta. I will simply recap what we have covered. So, this particular sutta talks about the Noble Eightfold Path. So, Buddha's teaching is coming in a systematic manner, where Buddha is explaining some sort of a systematic approach to deliverance, to the freedom. So there are various approaches even during the Buddha's time available. So many different ascetics have taken different approaches. For example, some group actually involved with so much of sensual pleasures. So they didn't talk about rebirth, or they didn't talk about the consequences of any particular good or bad deed. Rather, they thought, okay, we need to have enough pleasures as much as possible, because the life ends after this life. There is no any other continuation, and once the body dies, so that's the end of it, end of the story. So as much as possible, you have enough sense pleasures. So that is one approach. Even today such is available. So if you look into the majority of the world, if you go particularly to the Western countries, so majority of the people are involved with these sense pleasures. They are not thinking of anything about the spirituality. Rather, as much as possible, they enjoy senses. So that is typically in Dhamma, it's called Kamasukhallikana Yoga, where you are indulging sense pleasures. Of course, there is enough pleasure available, but that is in a way kind of an extreme. You become, in a way, indulge in it. You are, in a way, taken by it, because sense pleasures are quite hard, quite gross, and there's a gross enjoyment available, so people are easily get caught to that. On the other hand, there's another extreme that is called Attakilamatthana Yoga. So some group of people, they sort of started to torture the body, thinking that by torturing the body, they can have some sort of a liberation, some sort of a ending of suffering. So they thought there is a kind of a sin available inside, there's a kind of a inner impurities are available, and those impurities can be eradicated by torturing the body. So they undertook various kind of techniques, harming themselves, torturing themselves, and getting to various extreme techniques. And through those, actually they thought it is possible to purify themselves. And that is another extreme. Even today, such extreme methods are available. If you look into, even in today's India, still such methods are available, and people still going in that extreme as well. Buddha actually tried both paths. So it is not that he covered or he understood the middle path immediately. Before he attained enlightenment, he himself tried both these paths practically. Not through books or simply through hearings, but he himself indulged in sense pleasures. You know, he is born as a prince, and a lot of pleasures are available, and his father, King Suddasana, wants to make his son, only son, to be a kind of a ruling king, and therefore he didn't want him to be a monk. Rather, as much as possible, he want to keep him in the sense pleasures, in the lay life. So therefore he has built mansions according to the various seasons that the king, this Prince Siddhartha can enjoy. Ramya Suramya Subha. So one to the autumn, one to the spring, and one to the spring, to the winter, like that. So the enough sense pleasures are available. So for 29 years, so he indulged in these pleasures, and he has gone to that end as well. On the other hand, at the age of 29, so he left the palace and he started various other ascetic practices. So, and the common understanding at that time was by doing this self-mortification, this kind of ascetic practices, one can attain liberation. So he tried all the various techniques. Very hard. So he traumatized his body. So he started not eating, even not breathing. And even, staying at, very difficult places. Likewise, he has gone to the extreme. And almost like sometimes the deities even have thought that Prince Siddhartha has gone, he is almost dead. But fortunately, he has understood, so this is not the path. So he has tried both extremes, and he has went through them and understood these extremes are not the path. And now he is coming up with his own kind of understanding, so that is the middle path. So middle path, he explains, it is not that 50% of self-mortification and 50% of self-indulgence or the self-pleasures. Rather, the middle path has a deeper meaning. It is not that you are living in a middle-class family, not going to the luxury method and not going to the most, poor method. Rather, you are in the middle class. It is not the middle path that Buddha is explaining, but it has a deeper meaning. So that is what we are trying to understand. So what is this middle path? So in this Parangama Sutta, Buddha has mentioned, Attime bhikkhave dhamma bhavita bahuli kata apara parangamanaya samvattanti. So there are amongst 8 factors. If developed, you will be able to cross from this side to the other side, from this shore to the other shore. So what are these 8 factors? So that is the sammaditthi, that is the correct view, samma sankappa, the correct thoughts, we can say, samma vacha, the correct words, samma kammanta, the correct actions, samma ajiva, the correct livelihood, samma vayama, the correct effort, and then samma samadhi, likewise the 8 factors are there. So actually we are going through one by one. So yes, last month I tried to cover some amount of understanding about sammaditthi. Buddha mentioned that sammaditthi, the correct view, has 2 sides. So that also important, that we sometimes think, okay, sammaditthi is this, and we are sort of fixing ourselves to some high-end understanding. But Buddha explains in a systematic manner where sammaditthi has some sort of a mundane aspect as well. So that mundane aspect is called the laukika sammaditthi or mundane sammaditthi, and actually that is based on the kamma. So if we are doing correct things, so you get the correct result. If you are doing bad things, so you have to expect the bad results. There are consequences. Basic kamma belief. That is called kammasakata sammaditthi. Because if we are forgetting that and thinking some far beyond, and if we are neglecting such base kind of a understanding, fundamental understanding, then we are missing the path. Therefore, we have to well establish ourselves in this kammasakata sammaditthi, believing that we have to be moral, we have to, based on some ethics, we have to think about the consequences of what we are doing. We have to take the responsibility. So that is there. So if I am doing wrong deed, suppose I am killing an animal. So I can't simply say there is non-self there, so there is no person to be killed and all these very high-end teachings as an excuse. So such things are not valid at this level. So we have to understand, okay, at the moment I have killed purposely or intentionally an animal, so I have to get the consequences. You can't escape from that. Actually, you can minimize the consequences by getting to the proper path that is available. It is not that you have to go through the whole suffering for all the bad deeds you did. Once you come to the correct path, you can take various measures to mitigate the consequences that is available. But on the other hand, we need to understand, so if I am doing a wrong thing, definitely I have to get the responsibility. I have to be the responsible person. Because there is a person involved at that level. I am doing it as a person. So there's a kind of some sort of a personification is available, personality view is available. Based on that, I am killing an animal, that there itself I have a kind of a personal attitude. There's a kind of an animal's person attitude is there. So therefore, this kammasakata sammaditthi has a big meaning. So as meditators or as the practitioners, so we need to therefore support our practice through sila. So you can't simply neglect sila and think, okay, I am a meditator, I am not talking about this ABC of the point, so I am in the high end. You can't tell like that. So we have to come back to the ground and we have to well establish ourselves in this foundation. Foundation is the sila, foundation is the morality. Actually, once you are developing on this well-grounded or well-established foundation, then you are in a way safe. And what you are developing is sustainable. It's not sort of unstable, rather it becomes fairly stable because you have a good foundation. And you are supporting, you are maintaining the moral, morally you are maintaining some good ethics and good, say, verbal and bodily deeds, and therefore, so what you are developing is fairly sustainable. It's not skipping you or it's not immediately leaving you, rather there's a good ground is available for that to be with you. Therefore in one sutta, in Parinibbana Sutta, Buddha is telling, Sila paribhavita bhikkhave samadhi chirattitika. Chirattitika hoti mahanisansa. So basically, if our concentration is developed while being on the good morality, so you can have this concentration for a long time. It will be with you for a long time. So sometimes people are striving hard and developing fair amount of concentration, but they can't maintain it. Sometimes they are losing that because of negligence in their morality. So they may associate maybe wrong people, or they may indulge in various bad speech, wrong speech. Ultimately, the developed concentration will simply go away, leave you. So therefore, in order to maintain whatever the good qualities, spiritual qualities that we are trying to develop, we have to have this proper foundation, strict foundation, strong foundation. So that is the morality. And on the other hand, now the sammaditthi is one important factor, and Buddha says if one has this proper understanding or proper view, so that itself is leading to further development of other qualities. So therefore, right view becomes the forerunner of all other things, all other spiritual qualities. It's very much like, say, if you want to go on a particular place, at least you need to know, okay, in which direction I have to go. Say, for example, you want to go to immigration department. And you should know, the immigration department is in this particular side. So if you are going entirely in the wrong direction, you may not arrive in immigration department. So you should know, okay, where's the immigration department? So it is in the opposite, say, north side. So you have to go, or you have to drive in that direction. Similarly, Sammaditthi, the correct view, is something like that, giving you the direction, giving you the proper indication, okay, this is the path that you need to go. Accordingly, the other factors will follow. But if you don't have even that available, so you are going in straight. So you don't have proper direction. So having proper direction is therefore quite important. Therefore, it is Buddha is telling, Sammaditthi Pubbangama. Sammaditthi becomes the forerunner of the whole practice. And there are also first of all, we need to establish ourselves in the Kammasakata Sammaditthi, the basic understanding about the Kamma. Believing, so I have to lead a kind of a moral life. I have to maintain some good speech, correct speech. And again, I have to behave well through my body. So the basic understanding, basic belief of this Kamma becomes essential. And the point typically is that people even don't consider such thing, and therefore they constantly wander in the same path, wander in the same bank of the river. Suppose we are in a particular side of the river, and if you want to cross to the other river, other side, other bank, so that becomes indicating, giving some sort of a model to our practice. So we are practicing in this bank, we are trying ourselves, and ultimately hoping to cross to the other bank. That is the most, protected or area, safe area, other bank. But at the moment we may be in this bank, this side. So this Parangama Sutta is telling us, so there are 8 factors. If we are able to develop, then it will lead us to the other side, to the other bank. So these 8 factors, therefore, it is quite necessary to understand, and accordingly, if we are develop them properly, then in one day we will be able to cross over to the other side. So if we are coming to the next stage of this Sammaditthi, so that is quite important, because that is called the Lokuttara Sammaditthi. Now, as I said, so we need to understand this Sammaditthi has 2 sides. The first side is the Laukika Sammaditthi, or the mundane right view, and we have to establish well there. While based on that, we are developing concentration, because we can't have immediate understanding if our mind is scattered and dispersed, distracted. And accordingly, we are now going in a path, we are developing our path, and there is a possibility of understanding a supramundane Sammaditthi. So this is something deeper that we need to slowly understand, because if we are immediately thinking of the supramundane Sammaditthi, then we are missing the point. That's what I am reiterating. First, we need to well establish in the Laukika Sammaditthi mundane right view, and based on that we have to develop fair amount of concentration, and with that we have to develop wisdom. So through wisdom, now we are reaching this supramundane Sammaditthi. So what is the supramundane Sammaditthi? So this is basically the 4 Noble Truths in simple terms, or in short. The first Noble Truth is the Noble Truth of suffering. Second Noble Truth is the cause of suffering. Third Noble Truth is the cessation of suffering. And the fourth noble truth is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. So if we don't know these four well, that means we are ignorant of this supramundane samadhi. Now we need to understand, there are enough books written about these four noble truths. So you can have various books available through Four Noble Truths and you can read it and think, okay, now I have the supramundane samadhi. So is it correct? So there are enough books available about Four Noble Truths nowadays available, and after reading such books, can you claim now you have supramundane samadhi? It is not possible. So here is the point. Basically here we are talking about some sort of a practical understanding, some sort of your own experiential understanding, not simply a book knowledge. So that is where the practice become extremely important. So there are enough books available, libraries of books are available nowadays, and even if you go to internet, you can search so much of detail in analysis of all these things. Having such knowledge, by gathering all this knowledge, you can't claim that I have supramundane samadhi. That is where we need to touch that. That is where we need to experience that. That is, then only one can claim, okay, at least I have tasted it. Maybe even momentarily, I have tasted it. It's very much like eating an apple. So you can have various books written about an apple. Apple is this color, that color, this is the weight of it, and it is grown in this particular countries, and this is the biological name of apple, and all these various things. You can write thesis about apples. And nowadays Apple computers are also available. But if you haven't tasted an apple, then you don't know the real taste of an apple. Something like that. So simply you have to taste it, then only you can tell for sure, okay, I have tasted apple. You don't need to, if someone coming and sort of challenging you, you don't know the taste of apple, then you can simply tell, I have tasted it. I have tasted it myself. I know the taste of apple. Something like that. So you don't know much about the biological name and all these, I don't know, the botanical names and all these things of the apple, but you have tasted it. Something like that. So therefore, having such taste of Four Noble Truths is quite important. So that is what we are trying to do through practice. Actually, you can't have the practical understanding or the experiential knowledge of Four Noble Truths without going through a practice, without going through the meditative knowledge. As I begin this Dhamma sermon, I have mentioned there are 3 levels of knowledge Buddha has mentioned. First one is the Sutta Jnana, where you can gather knowledge through listening, through reading and various other communication methods. You can gather enough knowledge. So that is also a part of knowledge, but it lies only in the surface level. It is someone else's knowledge, just simply borrowed knowledge. Again, you can use that knowledge, use that information, and you can recollect. You can think in different ways, contemplate about according to that, and think rationally. And again, you can develop fair amount of knowledge that is called contemplative knowledge or Chintame Jnana. But still not enough. So that is the point. Therefore, we have to go to a meditative knowledge. So that becomes the sort of a unique knowledge. That becomes our own experiential knowledge, and that you can't borrow from someone. You ourselves have to develop, we ourselves have to strive hard and practice, and then only it becomes your own knowledge. At one time, one monk called Kalalgoda, he approached the Buddha and he is telling to the Buddha, Bhante, there is everyone talking about Sammaditthi. What is this Sammaditthi? So he directly asked the question from Buddha. So here Buddha does not talk much about this Kammasakata Sammaditthi or the mundane Sammaditthi, but here Buddha talks this superior Sammaditthi or the supramundane Sammaditthi. So Kaccanagotta Sutta becomes one of very important sutta where Buddha has mentioned about this fairly higher level of understanding about this superior Sammaditthi or the supramundane Sammaditthi. So that is actually leading, you can have some understanding about that sutta, but if we are to really feel it, if we have to really taste it, we have to go through the practice. Say for example, you are practicing Anapanasati. Now you are keeping your attention to in-breath, keeping your attention to out-breath, keeping your attention to in-breath, keeping your attention to out-breath. So at the beginning it appears like quite boring. It's not tasty at all. Your mind is jumping to here, your mind is jumping to there, going to the past, going to the future. So every time your mind gets entangled. So when the mind is entangled in the past, it is not free. It's fairly entangled, fairly ignorant. When the mind is entangled in the future, it is fairly ignorant. Not even know the present moment. So in that sense, the mind is fairly ignorant, fairly stupid in that sense. But on the other hand, if mind is capable of understanding the present moment, some amount of understanding is there. Comparatively good. Comparatively, you can say now mind is not indulging in the past or not indulging in the future. Rather, currently the mind is established on breath. So breath may be not kind of a really source of big knowledge, but at this moment, at least, mind is not indulging in past and the future, rather it is in the present moment. In that sense, it has some sort of an understanding, some sort of a knowledge. So in that sense, mind is some sort of a release is maintaining, tasting. Because you need to understand, when we are indulging about the past, when we are lost in the past, we are being hindered. Our mind is very much become a slave to the past incident, past memories. We are like sort of lost the present moment, but entirely in a different world. On the other hand, when we are dreaming about the future, we get stuck in various states. We get sometimes surprised, or on the other hand, sometimes we get panicked. What's going to happen? You are getting to some sort of uncertainties, and all these things are available when the mind is being in the future. So therefore, you need to understand this thinking too much about the past and dreaming too much about the future. So we are losing the freedom of the mind. Rather, mind becomes somewhat traumatized in those various some uncertainties of the world. But on the other hand, if we are capable of maintaining our attention on even a very simple activity like breathing, so we are a little free from that indulgence. We are a little free from that uncertainties. Rather, the mind at the moment is on the breath. It is in breath, I am sure about it. It is out breath, I am sure about it. It's not too much of complexity is there. Rather, mind becomes somewhat simple and fully aware of the present moment. Now, this is in a way, some amount of understanding is there, some amount of proper view is there. But it is not enough, of course, we need to further develop. Assume now we are maximizing this. Okay, now we are able to keep your attention in the present moment for 10 breaths. Keep your attention for 20 breaths. So likewise, now you are understanding, okay, there are enough line of breaths are coming. The mind or the attention is capable of keeping on this line of breaths. You are not missing any breath. Now slowly we are trying to get the full picture of this process. One breath coming, so we are there. Another breath coming, we are there. Another breath coming, we are there. Another breath coming, we are there. So now we are not in the past, not in the future, rather in the present moment. and we are not missing any breath. So at least at this moment, I have some picture about this particular process. So this is not the entire understanding, but at least at this moment my mind is concentrated. So this concentrated mind is well established on the present process. So this will further lead to some minor level understandings, some subtle level understandings telling, okay, this breath is coming and it has different aspects. One may be longer, one may be shorter. One may be warmer, one may be cooler. One may be subtler, one may be gross. So likewise, different aspects are there. Now you get some idea, okay, I can, at the beginning I didn't have any such understanding, but right now I can see these subtle differences in breath. And on the other hand, you lose some sort of wrong understanding, thinking that various thoughts are coming to the mind. I have to be responsible of all these thoughts. We sometimes think like that. All the thoughts are mine and I have to take care of all these thoughts. So I have to take an action according to these thoughts. But right now the yogi, the practitioner, is aware of the breath, neglecting the thoughts. So what happened to your understanding? So then there's a kind of a change happen in the mind. Okay, you can simply neglect thoughts. You have nothing to worry about them. You don't need to be responsible of all the thoughts. You can discard them. You can disclaim them. You can neglect them. And you can keep your attention on breath. In that sense, what a relief. Typically, we think all the thoughts are mine. I am thinking. I am responsible for all these thoughts. And I have to take an action according to these thoughts. That is how we are thinking. But more and more your attention is taken on to this breath. So there's a big relief because you don't need to think too much about these thoughts. It is not necessary or not essential to take responsibility of these thoughts. Rather, you can simply neglect them and keep your attention on the breath. So breath becomes, in that sense, kind of a savior, kind of a safe place for the mind to establish. So mind is now established on breath and discarded various distracting thoughts. So what do you think about the clarity of the mind? Now the clarity of the mind improves. So at the beginning, your mind being tortured by various thoughts related to the past, thoughts related to the future, and even the present moment there are various thoughts being triggered because of the sensory impingement. Your eyes are giving some information, ears are giving information, tongue giving information, nose giving information, body giving information. Various stimulations are there, so mind being constantly tortured. Now what happened? So your eyes are closed. You are in a very calm place. So there is no much disturbance noises. So fairly, your ears are not much disturbing. And there is no special smells available. So your nose are quite alright. And you are not eating, tasting anything. And only your attention is on the breath. So basically, your whole experience becomes simplified. So you are not in a very complex, complicated situation. So the clarity of mind improves. So the clarity of mind improves with a very simple activity. So we think, in order to develop the clarity of mind, I have to go to some very specific place and I have to get a blessing and all blah blah things. But this simple activity, by keeping your attention again and again on the breath, makes such a relief that your mind can keep constantly on breath. It's a very simple activity, happening available for you free of charge, and you are now discarding all these distracting thoughts. And mind can stay and enjoy this breath. So the mind becomes very settled, in a kind of an equilibrium, and no much distraction, and no much defilements. Now typically we can say There are no sensual thoughts available at that time. You are not going after various sense data. Say, for example, we are being distracted typically for various forms. When we are looking at through our eyes, if there is some beautiful forms are available, immediately we go there. When we are hearing some things, if there are a lot of interesting songs and sounds and all these things are there, immediately our mind gets distracted there. When we are tasting some good things, good taste, delicious food and all, so immediately our mind gets established there. When we are going through various nice sensations, again our mind is distracted or drifted there. But right now what happened? Mind is in a kind of a equilibrium, kind of a balance, where your eyes are closed, ears are not much functioning, even though you hear things, you are not much giving importance to that. Your mouth is closed, there is no specific taste involved, and again your attention is only drawn to very simple activity. So if all these special ways, all these conditioned ways, you can understand, now temporarily at least, mind has some clarity. Mind is free from the past, mind is free from the future. But right now, mind has established on a present moment awareness. So, this present moment awareness begins like this. So, you are getting to some sort of a clear area. You are getting to some sort of a simplified area. You are getting to some sort of an unentangled area. So, mind becomes to experience some sort of a freedom. Now we need to maximize this freedom. Okay, now I am able to maintain this for 5 minutes. I am able to maintain this for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 50 minutes. If you are able to maintain this, say 40 minutes, so it's very blissful. So you can't believe, just by enjoying this present moment, very simple activity, your mind starts to bloom. You may feel that, okay, I am in a different domain now. I don't need to have joy through eyes, ears, nose, tongue or the body. I can simply have enough joy through this simple activity. So you are getting to a different domain now. So typically we call Niramisa Piti. So you are getting some sort of Piti, rapture, which is not involved through the senses. But the beauty is, your mind feels free to some extent. Not totally free, but to some extent you feel some freedom, because you are not being tortured through various forms coming through the eyes. You are not being tortured through various sounds, noises coming through the ears. And you are not being tortured by various tastes. Similarly, various smells, and similarly various sensations. Rather, you are simply being established on a very simple activity, that is simply the breathing. So there is enough clarity in the mind, enough freedom in the mind, and you are well established in the present moment. So this, in a way, we can say the beginning of the path, or the taste of freedom to some extent. Not total, but at least to some extent. So you are tasting little freedom. So you are getting to a different domain. So there is some sort of enjoyment available, not coming through senses. Typically we think, okay, the enjoyment is only available through eyes, through ears, through nose, through tongue, through body, or through mental proliferation. But at this time, there is no enjoyment coming through nose, no enjoyment coming through tongue, no enjoyment coming through ears, no enjoyment coming through eyes, and no enjoyment coming through thinking either. Well, sometimes people enjoy by thinking. You are dreaming, you are enjoying thinking. But such thinking has stopped almost. So your mind is quiet, fairly quiet mind, no inner chatter. This very much quiet mind enjoying the present moment awareness. So there's a different domain now you have established. So this is how you are getting to this spiritual path, so much of freedom. So basically, so this is some sort of freedom that we are enjoying. So if you can't understand the freedom available here, then we are missing the point. So basically this freedom comes through simplicity, not through complexity. This freedom comes through the inner qualities, spiritual path, not through satisfying the senses, not through satisfying the craving, rather simply being in the present moment. So enough clarity is available for the mind, enough freedom is available for the mind, and it is utterly in the present moment. So once we establish ourselves in this present moment, so still the mind has grasped the present moment experience. Can't help. At the moment there is some amount of grasping, so that is the present moment experience, but fair amount of freedom is available. Previously we didn't experience such freedom, but momentarily at least, we have grasped some pure object or some undefiled or less defiled object. Because of that, mind feels fair amount of freedom. So this freedom we have to welcome. So this freedom we have to maximize. And it will lead to some sort of a blissful experience, and that is the samadhi. That is the concentration, and that itself giving you a lot of freedom. Say for example, assume that your mind is itself staying in this object without your intervention. Say you at the beginning, you are again and again bringing your mind again and again to this experience. You have to bring your mind again and again to the breath. It's a difficult task. Actually, it's a kind of a difficult task because mind drifting, mind distracting. But as a result of development, assume that your mind stays by itself for a longer period of time. You don't need to put your hand. You can be in the back seat, allowing the car to be driven, something like that. So the mind itself is constantly, very beautifully enjoying the present moment. One breath coming, it is there. Another breath coming, it is there. Another breath coming, it is there. You don't need to do anything, rather simply enjoying, rather simply observe. Kind of a passive observation. So much of freedom. So much of freedom because nothing to do. Some amount of ego has gone. Because fair amount of ego is there when there is a big achievement. I have to do something. I have to come forward. I have to do something. But here, you have nothing to do. So mind itself is easily, in a very comfortable way, mindfully staying one by one. One breath coming, mind is there. Another breath coming, mind is there. One breath coming, mind is there. You simply observe. Very much like suppose you are going in a taxi and it is driven by a driver. You are not supposed to give instructions. At the very beginning you tell, okay, I need to go to this place, and you simply enjoy in the back seat. Very much like that. How much of freedom? Otherwise, you have to be aware of the traffic light, you have to be aware of the cutting off, you have to be aware of the overtaking, you have to be aware of the accident, so much of trouble. So much of responsibilities. But while being in the back seat, you can simply enjoy. But I don't know whether you are giving instructions to the driver while you are in the back seat. But if you have to enjoy the journey, simply don't give instruction, just enjoy. So now fair amount of ego has to reduce because you have to trust the driver. He knows the path and he's taking you. So mind your own business. Something like that here. Simply the mind itself is doing the task and you have nothing to do. Simply to enjoy, something like that. So you have enough freedom. So you have some clarity, you are enjoying that path, and this is in a way some amount of freedom. So there is more freedom is available in the path, and we'll discuss that tomorrow, and I will stop it here. So in a way, this is the kind of a freedom that we are enjoying in the spiritual practice, enjoying in the mindfulness practice, and that will lead to further and further freedom. So this supramundane sammaditthi, the correct view, is leading towards more and more clarity of mind, more and more freedom of the mind, more and more disentanglement, more and more into the simplicity, not to the complexity. So with that final words, I'll conclude this today's Dhamma sermon. Thank you very much for attentive listening.